just ask you, Kinga, how are you? How's it going? How's your life?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I'm now well. I was a bit ill in the last couple of weeks, but it was not corona. It was more like a stomach stuff.
Okay.
And I stuck in Switzerland. I had a writer residency here in this small town. It's called Zug, and it's a program for East European and Middle European writers. And it should have ended in the end of January, but I got an extension until the end of April, so it was fine. And then the corona came, and then we couldn't go anywhere, so we are stuck here. I mean, it's not that bad being in Switzerland, being in a cluster. It's a beautiful area in the mountains and by the lake, so it's pretty horrible, the landscape and the fresh air. I'm suffering a lot. Then I got this extension, so actually it's super here. Okay, of course I miss my family totally and also my friends, and I cannot go anywhere because if I move, then I'm taken back to Hungary, and this is what I really don't want to. So I'm staying until the end of July, and then I hopefully can go also to Hungary and also to Austria and Germany. So I'm waiting for that. Yeah, yeah. And how about you? Are you healthy, guys?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe I was a little bit sick at the beginning of COVID-19. You know, we went with Joaquin Montesfi. We were in the same concert in the Strasbourg. From Mulhouse, you know, were like the first cases of COVID in France. And Joaquin has it, and some friends of me, maybe me too. I don't know, because I was really strange sickness. With breathing phenomenon, but I recovered the breathing to take some recording for like a like a COVID natural sick poetry. I'm taking a lot of vitamin D and sun and making yoga. You know, I'm eating really well, cooking with algae and I have 5 cats now, like around me. Combined with 5 cats and vitamins. No, but yeah. And I hope that Joaquim is recovering. Him also. He told me that maybe he joins us later.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, it's beautiful here because every Wednesday we meet us like to talk and to cover our link and show some part of our work to the others by this new way of communication. And so then I don't know, Felipe can start asking things to Kinga, because you know, at Kinga, I saw her in performance in live few times. We shared some stages, and it's really wonderful, and all the power and the elegance that she put in performance and her work. But maybe you discover more than now, Felipe, and if you like completely like from the spontaneous.
Yeah. Well, Gerard is also here. How are you?
Oh, fine.
Hey, Gerard.
Hello.
Hi.
Nice to meet you.
Well, and the idea today, as in the other session, is to talk around your work in this case. And first of all, we'd like to know. Well, I have 2 questions, in fact. The first is if you were developing a specific project in this residence, and the second one. Curiosity, I've never been in a writer's residence. I think I would kill myself being only with poets, but yeah. And how does it work, and how do you find it as a way to develop a work? Maybe you can focus more or not. I don't know. A friend of mine was in one residence a couple of years ago in a place with no internet. So in that conditions, I think I would die, but I imagine George also, but maybe for some people it's very useful. So if you can talk us a little about it.
Yeah, so imagine it's really like a cluster. So I live next to nuns.
Wow.
So it's not a joke. But I have to tell you why I applied here. It's not was just like that I didn't want to go back to Hungary, and I'm still in an existential crisis. That's true. This is the last 7 years, so I was really doing a kind of residency hopping. It's not so nice, but now I'm really stopping soon. So I don't have another residency plan in the future. It was really enough. But the thing is that in the last 1-2 years, I began to work with, recycling things I already worked with for a couple of years or in the last years. But what really interests me is the nun art. So the art of the nuns. When I was in Graz last year, I made already liturgy performances. I began to work with like spiritual or mystical texts, but like text as an acting. So for me, it was very interesting what's happening with these religious texts, and if you are practicing the text. So I was checking the movements of the pastors or the movements of these nuns, these holy people, this motoric way of moving. So like the prayer, the chanting, the walking, the singing, what's happening when you are practicing the texts, wortwörtlich, so literally. And I found out that the nuns were actually doing a very amazing, sometimes pretty morbid, recycling art. They wanted to do the same art things what there was already there in the churches, and it's happening many times that the church didn't have money, which I find always a bit funny, but whatever. And then someone had to repair the pictures or the paintings or the statues or whatever. And it was not always a person, a sculptor or a painter, but there were the nuns. So the nuns had to know, next to gardening or teaching or sewing or doing these female things like household stuff, they had to learn a bit of an art. And they used everything because of course they have a limited life, or they don't need to have money or joy in their life or whatever. The only joy is Jesus Christ, if we all know. But that was the thing, that they needed to use everything they had, the clothes, I don't know, this holy stuff or materials in the church. They had to use everything. And they began to do this kind of recycling art, which was sometimes pretty naive, but sometimes it was a big success. And they also used the part of the body. So here in the cloister, there is also a man, a kind of a mummy or a sculpture, but it's a biosculpture, so it's really a dead man. But also covered with a lot of materials and golden stuff, but there are bones. But a couple of years ago, they found out that it's not just the bones of this man. So it's a big possibility that the nuns had another kind of collection from other bones from other people. And like a nice puzzle, they just try to fix the things, And I find it hilarious. And they also wrote a lot of texts and poems. So, for example, in Graz, I also met some nuns, and they told me that they wrote also a lot of poems also, and I'm working with these poems too. I'm writing songs to that, or I use the Hungarian Santa Maria songs with this nun text or so. So I'm pretty into the nuns, like the not known artists or not known recycle artists. And that's why I wanted to come here, because I know that it's a cloister. And I thought, okay, it's really like a golden mine, and I can find some stuff, and it's true. And I also made some interviews with some nuns, and now I began my PhD in Zurich, in in September, but like, you know, I don't have to live here. I just have to go there to have some discussions or so. And this is going to be my topic,
Oh, wow.
performative literature and the non-art. So I might interview you guys also if you don't mind. Sometimes I'm going to attack you with some questions. So that's why I'm here. So of course it's boring. It's a writer residency. There are writers who are hilarious people, but they don't want to do music or crazy stuff or so, and they like their solitude. I'm not. So I needed to find out other ways. And I met a lot of musicians, really cool people here before the corona, and we began to jam. And I was also in some kind of noise concerts or so. But of course, the bloody corona came, and then there's no jamming at the moment. I hope it's happening slowly. I met a wonderful woman. Her name is Paula Mendez, and she's a singer-songwriter, and she works also mostly with Maria Magdalena. And now we are already in contact because we wanted to sing together, so like fake holy female stuff. And I'm really hoping for that it's going to happen in a couple of months. So this is what I'm doing. Yeah, of course, it's a writer residency, so it has its limits. But if you are sneaking around, you can find other cool people.
Yeah. Martin?
Yeah, do you listen to me? Sorry. You listen to me there?
Yeah.
No, there is some Hildegard von Bingen songs to healing the people, you know, like collective songs that she wrote. The thing in conditions like you, like an art in the middle of you know, known. You have to be unknown. If not, you were buried. You know, like you was like burn it like a sorcerer. You know? Then she arrived to put her in that kind of space where she can road and she can take care of plants, of stars, and to healing songs with the other notes. And they have some partition. I think you can find them.
Yeah, the Hildegard von Bingen's music has been played a lot. The Sinfonia.
So yes, then maybe it's a good way to move that kind of a connection between like mysticism and sound poetry that is really last week we was like a crazy moment. It was completely in Spanish, Argentinian Spanish. I really speak, but it was fantastic connection between mystical performance, party, trance, transmissions of secrets. It's really nice, and I more and more I feel that in sound poetry you have that kind of like early connections of or you know, like of sense, like the Neanderthal sounds that we make with our throat, you know. And we now have kind of little machines to expand that in another connection. But I think the same spirit and the same that acknowledge things. That did you read that? Did you read that the story today that they found another universe parallel that is go backwards?
Yes, I read that.
You know that they found it finally. You know, like.
Yes, they found it because they found particles that were going in the wrong direction. And also they were trying to find out why they were going in the wrong direction. And one solution is that there is a universe that's going backwards in time, which is really crazy.
Younger and younger. Lao Tse in China, he born like at 80 years old and he died when he was an adolescent. And maybe he talked to us from that another universe.
So you mean like this Benjamin Button, or what was this? This do you remember that this very cheesy movie with who was the guy? One of this supermodel one.
Brad Pitt or
Brad? Oh yeah, the Brad Pitt, of course. yeah.
I'm interested in what you're talking about the nuns because as well as Martina, I'm very interested in mysticism and especially in the Middle Ages and in the Middle Ages almost all of the mystics were female and lots of them were part of different I don't know, groups, or and they were religious people when they had their experience. And yeah, I wanted to know, because I have this idea, maybe a little ingenuous, but I've always have this idea of the of the convents and with nuns, like there were intellectual centers, like places of free study, and in incredible cases, just like Hildegard or other very important women. Lots of them were praying and having like
Having sex with God.
a religious experience, but also working a lot on research and as Martin said, in music and science and all that. So I wanted to know, because I've never been in a place like this in this year. So once I went to a convent here in Chile, but I wasn't allowed to go in. I went with my how do you say, Gerard, ¿cómo se dice maestra? With my with my tutor for my PhD dissertation.
Okay.
She's Victoria Silot. She's a specialist in Hildegard von Bingen. She has translated it
Uh-huh.
Spanish, and she was invited by some nuns in Viña del Mar, here in Chile. And I was with her, but they didn't allow me to go inside. So I had to wait, having breakfast. And yeah, she told me that she was talking with the nuns about the Red Book of Carl Gustav Jung that has been translated into Spanish some years ago. So she had this idea that they were very learned and they were studying a lot, but I don't know how's the experience. Of course, there are very different ways to live your spirituality nowadays, but what has been your experience of these places?
Yeah, it's also a very, very close place. So even if we live there, and it's really just like one door between the nuns and us, but we cannot open this door. Only the nuns can open it.
Oh.
And we can only go there if we got an allowance.
Mm-hmm.
But in November, I will literally move for a week in a cloister also in Switzerland.
Mm-hmm.
And I will live in this very small room, and then I have to do everything what the nuns are doing. So what I could do here, it was more like doing interviews with the nuns and talking with them. And I'm very excited because at the weekend there's an exhibition in Zurich in the Landesmuseum about the nuns. So I'm already like, to go there and check more stuff. We talked also a lot about feminism. And of course, if you also read about it, and it's not a secret that was already probably the only way if you didn't want to get to married, exactly. And if you wanted to study and get somehow a connection to holy books or science or other kind of stuff or so, and you didn't have to serve sorry for saying serve a man. And a lot of nun chose this way to be free or to get the connection to books or art. So there were really artist nuns too, or pedagogues, and that was their only way. And this is what interests me also, why they chose this kind of life and what they could do with it. And the whole thing stayed in secret. Nuns also wrote scientific books, of course, and literature books, and did also art, and we still didn't really know too much about it. So it's like a closed society. And somehow I also don't like it, because it's also like a privilege of women.
Yeah.
So it's a how to say, it's like this is a thing what was for men forbidden.
Yeah.
Because we know a lot of men groups and men societies which were all the time closed for women or so. And it's a kind of, so now we can also see the whole situation like an anti movement, so to say, that okay, now we are the nuns, we are also in a sect or sector, or I don't know how to say it, and now we close the man out and we share our knowledge only among us, and then nobody can have yeah, connection to that. So this is what I also don't like. It's also like a class system somehow.
Yeah, of course.
And this interests me also, why in the name of God or in the name of love and name of Jesus Christ we still close this knowledge and we don't share it with others. So that's also an interesting point of view, to be honest. Even if they were serving the whole time, it's still like a taboo or a secret.
It's important that you say, Kinga, because it's like in some that important feminist movement that is in the world that is really wonderful. That kind of power that the woman has in the world. But there is some woman who thought like you that we can, the feminist or the woman thought not only against something, you know, it's like another kind of thought, you know, and that is, I'm waiting for that. Yeah, that is important. Can you like go deeper in that idea of what can you, how do you feel the world like without that against man, like a weight or beyond? I don't know. What how you feel?
I find it very tragic. All the anti-movements actually, because all the anti-movements have the other movement inside. So okay, probably it's very naive how I'm talking about these things, but really in the name of love and sharing and freedom and holiness and whatever's, how do we have then the judgment of closing people just out of the ultimate knowledge? I find it tragic. And it's also in the music scene or in the noise scene or where we are now talking. Of course, there's still a bit more men than women, but I find so many angry women. And I always ask, where does it lead us, this angriness? We will never be able to share if we do these anti-movements or so. I'm highly criticized by many extreme feminists or so, but I don't give a damn,
But
about it.
do you imagine another kind of relationship between that gender opposition, man woman, or how do you can imagine your like the world like if you have the power of like inventing a new with that kind of new equilibrium of power. I don't know how to say it, but do you
I
follow?
think it's already in the sound. If you just think of, okay, this is also probably I'm talking bullshit, but you will stop me anyway. It's already in the Mongols, you know, this kind of double singing technique. We have the throat sound, or we have the head sound, and we have the stomach sound. And if we want to think in this binary system, then yeah, we can say that it's a woman sound and it's a man sound. We have both. And until the point we are not able to realize that we all have both, there was no a separation.
Yeah, like yin and yang in the Chinese.
Yeah, if we want to go that way to the spiritual whatever's, of course, yeah, true. We always have everything.
No, inside the
Why
man.
to separate?
Yeah. And no, because you had a man, you are not at the same time that kind of feminine thought inside of you, you know, and that is. But I hope that in our human life we receive that kind of new idea of woman artists. I study like the master of Pythagoras, you know, the philosopher poet, and he has 10 master, and 7 of his master was women of Pythagoras, you know. The first was his mother, and he has like a lot of women that the story forgot, or like mathematician, uh, really like in a moment a connection between Orphic Pythagorean movement, you know, and all the kind of from in between Italy, Egypt, and Greece. And it was a lot of women that we lost in a way. I think we can have to make a rehearsal of that kind of new thought, and because they I don't know how you feel the word with like a woman now, like a poet woman, sound poet woman. How really
Oh yeah, what a question. How I feel the word. I think it's getting better. We had now this corona. We all were like infected. We already discovered that language is a virus. And there was a good chance. So I was really a lot of time here on my own. So probably now I'm totally gaga. Have no idea, but I think that was a great choice or a chance, sorry, to see us, because there was no way. You had to. And it's also a catastrophe, of course. It was terrible and sometimes pretty damn good. And if now we have all this knowledge and desires and I don't know, uh, reaching for love or just a bloody hug, really like a normal a hug, which was always a part of our lives, and now it's like a privilege to be hugged. If we can go out with these things, because now we can slowly go out and enjoy our lives again, and if we are able not to forget these 2 months, I think things can be better. Really, it's really pretty naive, but I really think so.
we can feel it, in the air is better. The ozone is like a cover. We discover a parallel universe. Like
Yeah, how cool! Now I don't have to do anything. I can die because there is this parallel universe, and I'm still young and fresh and wonderful. No, who cares then?
as we talked the other time, there is that theory of Schumann theory, Schumann resonance, that the Earth have a kind of resonance that make it harmonic with other planets in the solar system, and the acceleration of the human that put in the world, the harmonics start to be like higher, from 723. And I thought that machine will give you like a 723 hertz, like the Schumann resonance.
Oh,
It makes synchronic audio electromagnetic noises is incredible. I will show you later. And then it can accelerate, and in a moment, the theory was we will arrive at a point that we can start to be backwards, like the same universe that we discover. Because if like in the moment the harmonic will make change the earth of resonance, and everything will be like in the backstep. Then maybe this is the last day that we go to the future. Now we'll start to come to the past again.
yeah, why not? I mean, what things are happening here too, with a lot of chanting and praying. Now I believe really in everything. So everything is possible now, because it's really brutal what kind of ecosystem also, or a biorobot or our own body is, how our own body reacts on sounds. I mean, I don't have to explain this to you because you know these ways better than me, but just a normal chanting, really just a morning together, what happens with your stomach, or what happens with your blood, or your temperature, or your blood pressure, or this kind of thing. And this is just a totally non-electronic, just a normal chanting. So if this has an effect, such an effect of us, then what others we were still blind, or we were not able to hear. And now I think this is really the time of the hypersensitivity, or at least in my area, of course. And then so I talked to a lot of friends, of course, what kind of experiences they had. And now I really see a kind of hypersensitivity, and I'm talking really about our hearing, and not just the heart and all these romantic things, but really the biological way, how we hear now, how we feel now, how we smell now. Everything is now in a top volume somehow, and I'm super excited about what will come out of that.
Yeah.
And
do you know the sonic war and tools that the China, for example, was developing in borders against their enemies? just developing like speakers kind of tools to fight the enemies. It was a war tools. You know that?
Yeah,
No, I don't really get it now. What you would love to?
It was
Can you?
it was weapons, just
Yeah.
kind of weapons made just by sound. So
Yeah.
they use sound to fight the enemies, and that was developed during the 60s and 70s, and they was doing these big amplifiers and whatever. Also like a kind of small things that you put on your own head, and it's kind of smash your brain, things like that.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see how the sound was used even in the 30s here in Spain, in the Republic, in the Civil War. They was using sound as well as a tool for fight. And like right now in Korea, in the borders between the two Koreas, they also have these speakers, but it's more like propaganda kind of thing, more than this biology thing you say. But in this physical sense, I mean, it's been plenty of tryings of developing weapons, you know, just using
That is
sound.
it's an old history. That there is some books about that, the sonic as weapon, and one of the first experience of resistance in what is in China.
Yeah, I wanted to say, yeah.
China with the you know
The bell, the
bell?
rings, yeah.
No, it's a different experience. Can you tell the ring? I know once with you know, how did you say in English, the cerf-volant, volantines. How you say, Gerard? How do you say in English, volantines?
No idea.
A comet, like comet, you know, comet.
A kite.
Yeah,
a kite.
The comets flying in the night.
Okay.
Was like making fear to the police, you know, and the police was fired out because the people like make comets during the night. It's like before Jesus Christ. It was narrowed in a Taoist book. Call it the Wine and Z. But you have another story.
Kites was weapons, huh? The Chinese, they used the kites as weapons.
Yeah.
It was pure weapons. So it was not like kids flying the kites.
But it's no weapons. It was more like tools of resistance in a way. Like you know, this. I think weapons. The notion of weapons is like I don't know. In Spanish, it's different. Armas. It's more like I don't know. It's more elegant because arma is at the same time the you know an arm, the alma at the same time, and we have. But weapon, what is that? Like the same critic that they made Henri Chopin when they say like avant-garde poetry. Avant-garde is for the military people, you know, like
yes.
what is that? You know, like avant-garde, like the avant-garde. Then maybe we can like start also to take off from some military words of our like no ethical comportment, or every time that you have to be confined, silence, you have to okay, collective. But now that is my own fear, that how the new nation state will try to control the people with the idea of virus, of the same that they try to do in the school with language, you know. No, you have to learn to read in that direction, in that way, and only in some poetry classes you have a kind of like experience of for me it was more in like a painting course, you know, have when the painter takes the freedom poetry, or the poet take freedom make a painting, you know, that you have a kind of connection, and you have not of that all the weight of the tradition of the what they're doing. In your case, Kinga, what is your with which kind of art you connected? I know you make performance and you draw and you sing, but how you say the connection between arts in your work, or in your life, or in the body?
Yeah, I think I'm a very old school person, and I just gebären. I produce them through my body. I cannot say it. I have the German word. Jörg. Wie sagt man gebären auf English?
Give birth to something.
Okay, yeah. So it's really very old school and very tribal, and sometimes it really has nothing to do with technology, I guess. But it's really like biologically giving birth. So I always have this idea that I'm carrying in my biomechanical system this thing, and I have to through it or let it through my body. And why is it not that naive or stupid as it sounds? Because I never really talked about it before, but now I openly talk about it. I was bound to machines when I was a child, and also when I was younger, because my body worked totally differently. So I had a very, very intimate, very deep connection with machines and cables and this kind of digital things. And I really have a feeling to be a cyborg, and everything what I'm producing is somehow through this cyborgial or cyborgial system, and that's why it still contains some technological elements or DNA, but it's still like more a biological, an organism. So actually, I really giving birth. I see myself as a technological Robocop lady who is giving birth of this very mutant things, children.
Biotechnological Robocop lady. Wow.
Yeah.
No, it's funny because you talk also about the nuns and you know these Islamic sects that they eat the text to cure themselves. So they write down like letters and they eat the letters, and sometimes they eat they drink the ink even.
Yep.
So I mean, this cyborg thing, it's really ancient. You don't need to get cables or things to get into this cyborg space. You know, they just ink, letters, paper. It's another kind of cybering. And all these all these clusters on nuns, you say. I mean, we have a very bad understanding about like something that Felipe said before. You know, in the Middle Age, to be a nun, that's like working in the MIT. You know, I mean, it was the high space for knowledge and everything, freedom, and it was not that easy to go there. To go there was like a pure privilege, you know.
Yep.
Right now we see it in another way, like they are close there, they don't have any relationship with society. We see church in another way, but that's more after the Renaissance thing. I mean, in the Middle Age, all this idea of the church, it's very, very, very different. And all these ideas of having these technologies involved with even with the body and the performance and everything, it's much more close than what we are talking about and what we do than what we imagine.
Yeah, it's really like a deep, very organic connection too, not just like the spiritual and then the intelligence and so on, but it's really like a pure organic being together. Yeah, it's like a constant sexual, very intimate relationship. When you use your body, you give everything actually for this being togetherness. So you offer just also your cells or your parts, just like your mind or your thoughts or so. Yeah, and this is the way I think how I could probably a bit describe what I am doing. Yeah, so offering or serving the all the parts to giving birth for something.
In Porphyrius, the secretary of Plotinus, a philosopher in Greece, he has an idea of like the artist take like the part of our souls on our body inside of us and go like a fisherman, you know, and take that kind of little particles around and inside of us, because the inside of the poet mixes with the outside and have like a tunnel. How do I say in English? I don't know how to say, like a recipient, and then the recipient of the poet, it has some holes. Then you put water inside, and like everything is mixing out. And then Porphyrius say you can take that particles of in yourself of all the universe and take out for light, you know, and that is for him was like the mission of the poet. And when you talk about it, I think sometimes how our part of our body is connected to the stars or to the words or to the syllables or and I saw you sometimes in performance and how what part of improvisation and of preparation you have in your art, because I never know if you're like completely improvisation trance, or was like writing from centuries on universe, multiverse, I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's sometimes a leaded improvising. Of course, there's a lot of improvising, and of course I let myself into trance. We are all doing that, even if with the datas or the codes or whatever. So there's always something mystical or trance or so. But I think we lead it in a way. We all lead it in a way. So it's always a kind of life composing and life reflecting, but still getting to this point or to the door or to the wall.
But how
So I
you
think it's
yeah, you have some like sequences that you have to play in performance. How do you, what is your method to present something in live?
yeah, it's always a text there. So I'm really old school, and there's always a written text there, which I'm mixing, of course. And there are also some patterns there or some samples or so. But then it's more like a topic. So I always have a message. Really, it's a very old school way. There's always a message what I want to give. And then the other things are happening there. So I know what kind of sounds I want to use or how I want to manipulate or where I want to go. Of course, it's never happening. And then I just let it. But of course, all the time reflecting and recomposing and so it's always like a very schizophrenia way or being on the stage somehow.
Schizophrenia.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then I also would like to make you a maybe broader question because I don't know, maybe all of us which are in this virtual room has our own ideas about faith, religion, spirituality, whatever, or I don't know. What I say is that when I most study about the mysticism, I became more atheist, but I don't know. It's like the opposite. But I wanted to know how you approach studying and in some way performing rites or prayers or different, I don't know, phrases, music, images from different spiritualities in a context like today. I mean, especially in the, I assume over there must be similar. There's no very much
No, I
religious
think
art.
I lost you.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, yes, but
Oh, yeah.
I didn't hear anything from
Don't worry,
what
I'll
you
repeat.
said.
Yeah, no, I was saying that in this actual context, maybe all of us have different beliefs or non-beliefs or whatever, and especially in the maybe the intellectual and artistic context, it's very hard to find someone who is like really religious or has a canonical way of leading his spirituality. Sometimes it is seen like you are a conservative person or whatever. But I like very much an idea that says Michel de Certeau. He was also a priest and a wonderful historian, writer, psychoanalyst, and he says that he thinks that in the 20th century there is no content left from the religions, but only the forms. So in a way, we can still deal with that forms, but we don't have to be necessarily believing in that or responding to that connection. So I wanted to see how do you think about that, because I don't know, but you can see some, I don't know, religious intuitions or whatever in very different artists that are not part of the church or whatever, but they are dealing with it in some way. How do you see that relationships?
Yeah, it's a very cool question what you are asking at the moment. I have a good friend. I met a Hungarian lady, it's incredible, in Graz, who is teaching at the Catholic University. She's a theologist, and she is the most hot, or the hottest woman I've ever met, really. You would never see that she's really religious and Catholic, and teaching at Catholic universities. She's a big fighter, or how to say, an activist to gender equalities and open sexuality, and so it's a crazy woman. And we talk a lot about Mechtild, am I saying her name well, who wrote this nun in the 13th century, who really loved or wrote very intimate sexual poems to God, for example. So that was also...
What was the name of that nun, sorry, from the 13th century?
Mathilde Mechveld.
I'm not... Wonderful. Yeah, I know her. She's
sorry, my
Can you write it in the chat?
Yeah.
For all of us?
In Spanish, she's Matilde de Magdeburgo. She's wonderful, and there are really erotic poems. They're beautiful, very.
I like Santa Teresa de Avila also, you know, has like a kind of.
But Mechtil is more like sensual. It's really like love.
Very sensual, very biological, sensual.
Yeah, exactly.
Really. Yeah. So very, very erotic things. But but the question, so exactly the forms. That's why I also love this group, because this is here also language as a virus, and a virus is also a manipulation. It's like a new element which is attacking with you, which is coming to you, and you have a very sensual relationship with this thing. So it's a manipulation, the virus self. And this is the same. The liturgy, the holy texts, the holy formats. It's a manipulation. This is the power of the language, or the power of the ritual, the form which can brings you to a trance, which can brings you to an orgasm in a very sensual or psychological or whatever ways. And this is what interests me, that how come sometimes these forms are empty. So just you said, they are now not really holding or carrying these ancient messages, but they still work as a format.
Yeah, and the energy is working in some way. That's
which I find incredible, and this is what I try to try out now at the moment. So I have to also say, next to my solo performances and liturgies, what I'm doing mostly with households, objects, and some holy objects and bells and whatever's. I'm working with another woman. You might know her. Her name is Silvia Rosani. No. She is a composer, and she's working with electronic music too. And she's from Italy, but she's teaching at the Goldsmiths University. I think, Martin, you met her when we were at the Goldsmiths a couple of years ago, and then you were burning everything. I think you met her.
Join her to the group. Can you join her to the group of WhatsApp?
I will. I will. And she's an amazing lady, and she knows everything about electronics, what I don't know. And at the moment, we are going to build Maria's velo. You know, this beautiful, beautiful, how to say, coat of Maria, and it will be a sonic velo. So I'm really doing chanting and liturgies, and now we are building this character more and more and more with text, with sounds, with sensors, with movements or so. It's a pure manipulation. And it's just a format, just the sensors, just the text, just the movements, but it's still working because of our memories, because what we earned, because of our hidden knowledge, or I don't know, put down knowledge, and the format is still working. And this is what interests me, how to do a manipulation with a form which I fill with all kind of bullshits I want to.
Yeah, or sacred poetry in a way when you take the. Do you listen to me? Yeah. Yeah, I changed your microphone. The microphone. When you take the formal structure of something, you know, like the shape, the way, the form, how you say, and then you can translate in another thing, you know, in poetry. That really interests me in the logic of virus, because it's the only thing who can make a human being like humble in a way, you know, like boom, there is some intelligence inside, and maybe come from that a universe that is backward. Then say like, hey, you go so fast, then we're not synchronized in the opposite side, please, you know. And then there's a kind of intelligence for that, and then how we can spread and use the same communication of virus, and I think language, maybe in Neanderthal time, it arrived from a comet and came into us, and the antibodies that we have for languages maybe sound poetry in a way, you know, like because literature, you know, there is some poets who came from more from literature, and other more from music in a way, more from sound in that in our connection, and then how do you feel which because for me, like, some poetry is the most in poetry, the styles who can connect for the other arts in a way, you know, have really like that capacity of like yeah, that poetry with some poetry with dance, some poetry with different things. How you feel that kind of connection between arts in now and forever?
Yeah, they were never separated. That's the thing. Why we cut them out of themselves, or how to say, they were never separated. That was always an organic unity. Okay, this is how I see it.
Yeah.
They were already these nice mutants.
Yeah, but sometimes when I talk with my cats, for example, I talk in human language. I don't know in which language, but and the cats start to make me to communicate me something specifically, you know, and I feel me so stupid because I don't. Yeah, I understand a little bit, but not completely what the sound of cats, and also they can see a lot more of things of us, you know. When they look at a window, they feel like, I don't know, 30 more colors than us, and they feel the sub sound, you know, when a window will be closed with the wind, they felt that before it started to wind. And then for me, yeah, I think the language is a kind of barrier we can like go beyond of that, and taking care of like that shape, that marvelous shape that it take for us. And we South Poetry now in this moment, we are like the channels for different kind of another virus. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think we should create that.
Yeah, so with the same logic of virus, but without that kind of against another, you know.
Yeah.
It's like. But I don't think that viruses are against us in that way, you know, because if you look the world from outside, in the space, not the space, you look the world beautiful, like the birds singing, the clouds. I don't know, the people from International Space Station, what they think about it. Have to see the pictures. But the all the Earth was confined, and the world base of harmonic, you know. Finally, you can. I listen the blackbird singing like ever, you know. That I felt different harmonies of in his singing, and then yeah, wow, I see that the earth is beauty now, more beauty than before, in that way, you know, to look it from there.
This I also think, and the other thing which is very cool, what you said about the virus, when we finally understand, and what you said about your cat, when we finally understand there is no bloody pyramid or hierarchy, that we were never on the top of any hierarchy.
Nothing.
We are the host of the viruses and the worms and everything. So if we did our life good, then we finally die, or our body dies. And if we are still okay and healthy or so, at least the worms can eat out of us. And then we are useful. And if you understand that, or okay, this is what I'm thinking, and my mother is a biologist, so we always had talks about this. If you understand that you realize that you are totally non-important at all. So actually, that the virus is never against us. The virus is now like a wonderful flower which is growing because he or she or it meet us. So from our meeting, it's coming beautiful mutants out. And if you are watching the whole thing, the whole meeting, or this whole being togetherness, or whatever, or an intimate relationship, from a person's or a human perspective, you say, yeah, we are attacked and it's dangerous or whatever. But if you are watching it from another perspective, wow, what kind of a cool metamorphose. Yeah, I might die, but if I see it from another perspective, it's a blooming of a new creature or a new mutant.
That is so beautiful. And you asked me like before the description of this group, you know, and we have not still right with Felipe.
Yeah.
What is our
No, we'll ask one of Georg bots to write it, so we don't have to do it.
Yeah, but just like maybe on reacting about your thoughts is like it's a kind of like tendency to keeping things alive beyond us, you know, like because each
exactly
individuality of us, each singularity, we will die like later or really fast, or we already die, and just like we are a delay of another existence. But this thing will be like later because the connection of us is another body, another organism. You know, that group is like we are another entity, and if some part of us will die, the other entity will take care of take another one good and take care of that memory and the space. And yeah, but that's the influence of some mystical Trovai Ritz. You know the work of Trovai Ritz in Middle Age of Beatriz de Dia, all that kind of troubadour poets that they
the troubadours, yeah.
But there is the woman troubadour. They call themselves like Trovai Ritz.
Okay.
And they have a wonderful songs between a Trovai Ritz and a troubadour. One of Rambaud de Vaqueiras and La Comtesa de Dia. And they one at the beginning of Calenda Maya, that first songs of when the months of May, like now, arrives. The spring's coming and everything, and the love will go away, and they are vaping love at the same time. And there is a wonderful work, mystical and sensuality of that people, of those poets from was a triangle between the south of France, the Barcelona, and the south of Italy. Like the kind of, and in the same triangle in the 13th, 20th century was created the tarot, the cathedrals, the Kabbalah, and the troubadour poetry. But in the same century, and was a lot of people that they connect themselves. Ramon Llull in Catalonia, traveling to some different places. I think it was another time like when Pythagore and Buddha was contemporary, and Zoroaster. They exist at the same time, and there is a myth that Zoroaster, Buddha, and Pythagore, they met together in a moment to write some, and some texts of Pythagore, they came from Buddha, and some texts of Buddha from Pythagore. In the same theory, they say that the Russian Revolution was a Tristan Tzara project. And there was a kind of, and back was the Dadaism was a Lenin project, and they played chess together. And they exchange of goals, and then Tristan Tzara make some fantastic history from the past. Sorry, I divagate a little bit.
No, it's super interesting. No.
Carlos Soto Roman, a friend from Chile, there, connected without sound, with a mommy. Carlos. Oh. And Gines from Berlin there.
Yeah. Really strange mix every week. And we also wanted to know, Kinga, because the idea is that after this conversation, we can show or put a link to some specific work that you would like us to see, to hear, whatever. So, do you think something specific, and would you like to tell us about it?
Yeah, I showed already Martin a thing, and in a couple of weeks, if it's still not late,
yeah,
there will be a new stuff coming out, which I made here. I'm talking about this too, and then also about the link I already sent you.
Yeah.
So it's a very fresh stuff I could record last week here in the chapel.
Wow.
Imagine there is a room for the nuns, the prayer room.
Wow.
With all with Marias and all these things, and it's a 600 years old room where they let me in. I was very, very blessed that I could go there and do chanting. So I did a lot of chantings and praying and a lot of sounds and this kind of stuff. It's recorded now. And this is also with Sylvia, with this friend of mine. So no, the whole package is now in London. Sylvia is working on it, and we also work with very old Italian texts. So there are Hungarian chantings from the 12th century, my poems, of course. There's a lot of Dada things inside. So I already began the work with the text. I tried this mythological and spiritual and so very, very manipulative text from me, from other people, from nuns, from the Austrian nuns, and so on and so on. So there was already one manipulation. And then the next manipulations came with the holy objects, with the holy place, with the holy sounds, and so on and so on. And now Sylvia is also working on some edit sounds. And I think in 2 weeks we are ready. And
great.
if you don't mind, I would love to show. So this is the next step of this holy work.
Yeah, maybe we can upload this video and later we can put the link when it's available.
Yeah, we'll make another meeting like in a month, another like.
A new round.
Or you also could invite probably Sylvia. So if you don't mind, I would love to add her.
Yeah, join her to the group.
Perfect. And I didn't understand, but did you record the sounds, but also film the
yeah.
Oh, great. And how was the place? A big place, a small place, or?
It's a very intimate and small place, really just for the nuns to pray. So actually nobody else use it. It's next to the chapel. So there's also a chapel there with an organ for other people. And that was the prayer room. And yeah, of course it has an atmosphere, and of course it has a very amazing echo. So of course
that's what I wanted to know exactly about the echo and the reverberation.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. I mean, imagine more than 600 years old, and then I could do that. And of course, normally there are writers here, so it was already a very strange thing that I went there with these small objects and sounds and whatevers, but they were really nice. And I'm really, really interested in it, what Sylvia is going to make with it, because really the goal is this manipulation. So smooth things and then chanting and connection to some higher whatevers, and also manipulate people. So I'm already very excited. And then the next step is hopefully this year or next year, building this velo, this Maria's coat, and then going also to the VR level. So I already have some VR people who want to work with us together. And it's also a cool story. I met a collector in Lucerne. It's like 20 kilometers from here. And he lives in his collection. It's amazing. Wow. It's a total big secret. Even his toilet is full with dioramas and 500 years old bones and whatever. It's brutal. Now I can show some pictures because I got the allowance to make some photographs. It's pretty morbid, but like amazingly beautiful. And the plan is to scan the whole stuff and create a chapel. So like with this virtual technology or virtual art, and doing performances or interactive stuff there. But I think it's still like 2-3 years when we are ready with that.
Wow.
But that's the aim, to create a new church.
Yeah, but
Probably a new
too much.
Yeah.
Probably a what? A new what? Sorry.
a church, a new church.
Wonderful.
And after that, a new what? No, but you follow another way, new church and new. Let's follow a word in the Scrabble word of. I love to make poetry with that, the Scrabble words. Like, can you choose a word?
Oh my God, Martin, I don't see anything.
Ah, sorry, yeah. I think
You know what? I will send you. Do you have? This is your your left arm is down. No, isn't it?
Which what? Ah,
your left hand was down,
no,
and your right hand was up.
Yeah, but I can change that. Look it. I go now in the other dimension. Now you will see me backwards.
Okay.
Then.
What are you doing with your left hand at the moment? Are you okay? Then just put your left hand to the left side. Now, to the left side of the book. Sorry, to the left side, the left page of the book.
Sorry.
Yeah. We are doing now this way. Cool. And then just begin to move it, and I will say stop. Yes, now stop. Okay, that's the word.
Substantive.
Okay.
It's like substantive. We will write it substantive. It's like, you know, it's like make you substantive of substance of something. You know, the acting of make substance. Substantive, yep. But the language. You know, I will write it here. But that is beautiful. I lost it in so many words. Substantive. No, I sent only to Felipe Gassen. Oh. The group, like, oh, that's a group, no?
No, but I don't receive it. I think.
I know, yeah, okay. Substantive.
Yeah, we have it.
But it's like that in French. I came from substance. You know? Then, and then you can derivate from like substitution, substruction, sauvegarde, suffisamment, stricto sensu, stylogut, strigomity, stethoscopy, but in a moment, when I start to read, it's the same when I read a partition of music. You know, in a moment, I'm tired of like all the kind of rules of music. You know, harmonics of da da da. You have to play that note, and you read, and I start to open completely the time, and I can read that note with that note, understand, and that word with that word, and that kind of freedom of reading. You know?
Yeah,
so
it's also like a live composing, no, isn't it?
Good. Yeah, everything's live, and when I was a child and I learned to read. I start like that, you know. That I read the panels in the streets, like Xerox, what kind of printer from I don't know what. The first word that I said in my life was Xerox with an X, R-O-X. Like I looked at it. I start to read before to talk. With Xerox was my first. Maybe I was autistic, you know. At that time. Anyway, but what is your first word?
My first word was gomb. It's a Hungarian word for button.
Wow. And
Yeah.
the other one, Felipe,
Sorry,
what is your first word? The first word that you pronounce?
I really don't know. I was thinking, but no, I don't remember. I know that I talked what I'm sure I can say is that I talked a lot when I was a kid. Well, just like now, and there were, but really a lot all time, and asking complex questions to my fathers. And there was a very good friend of my parents that didn't accept to go with me in the same car because he couldn't. He was getting crazy with me and a very high pitched voice talking all time. So that's what I remember, like talking all time.
Jorg.
I have no idea. I don't know.
That was your first word? I have no idea. I don't know.
Yes, I don't know.
I have no idea. I don't know. Gerard.
I don't remember even. I'm more or less like Felipe. I remember when I was small, I saw blood of Christ everywhere, and I have theological discussions with everyone. And I only remember my first words in Spanish, but in Spanish, the first words was "He visto el río." That's the first things I say in Spanish, but not in Catalan. Catalan, I was.
Sound poetry in Catalan.
Yeah, kind of.
Not meaning. Carlos.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, hello.
Oh, hey, hello. Yeah, I have some issues with the battery of my phone. So what was the question again? Your first
word. First word that you read or that you talk?
First poem.
I don't know. What is your first communication with contact with language, like orality from reading, that connection between literature and music, you know, that sound and meaning.
Well, I remember, I guess it was with Mauricio Redolés, the first time I realized that you could establish that thing, hearing his poetry and music. Well, we call him like a rock poet. And I think he was impressed by that. It was the first time I heard that expression, like what is exactly a rock poet? And it was because he was doing this with music, but with a strong poetical content, I believe. So I was curious about that combination.
And what is your first word? Yours. That the first like moment that you feel that you were like surrounding.
I don't know if you remember that. I can't remember, dude.
I have another memory when I was a kid about the difference between written language and speech, because in Spanish the H doesn't have sound. Yep. So if you put it with other letters, it doesn't make a change, except if it's with the C. But in that way, if you saw the expression photo, and photo in Spanish is with an F, but which means photograph, yeah. But in English it's PHOTO. So when I was a kid, I saw it and I read poto. Poto means butt or ass. So I remember going crazy in the streets, go poto, poto, poto. and I say, how these people have not noticed that they're writing poto in all the streets. It was really funny. And it was this kind of problem that when you're a kid, you are like thinking of it for months, like, oh, how does it work? Yeah. Well, I don't know if Martin left or no.
No, I'm here. No, I just was listening. Now I understand everything, Felipe. Please hold your poetry.
Yeah.
Now it's,
Please don't psychoanalyze me. I'm not sure it would be turn out very good.
Sound analysis.
Sound analysis, of course.
Schizophrenia.
Yeah.
You're diagnostic, you have schizophrenic. Schizophrenic disease. Schizophrenic good disease.
Yeah. Well,
Ginés, what was the first word?
Sorry?
Ginés.
Sí, Ginés falta.
What is your first word in the?
I don't remember.
Not word, but you're like connection.
I was thinking it's a really good question, but I think I have to ask my mom or something.
Call your mom.
I have to call your mom.
Call her. We wait.
Or something to eat, maybe. I don't know. I don't really remember, but it's a really good.
It's like television. We have your mom here.
No, yeah, Ginés here.
So now you have to start crying and get emotional. Well, I think that maybe we should start finishing. I don't know if you have any comment or whatever to say to people in other countries.
Yeah, so just to join to that, because you talk about psychoanalysis, but it's a beautiful theory of Donald Meltzer. He said that when you are born into the world, you have an aesthetic experience, and the first thing that you look around you, they produce you the unconsciousness who's only looking beauty. It's not looking truth or different connection. It's like the most beautiful form or shape. We return to the shapes of things, like. Same if you have a horrible meaning in some word or in a shape, if you take the form of that and you put it in another like a subtle matter, in a kind of a more different level, it brings you something new. And that is, I think, us poets, we have that kind of social mission, like kind of connect that kind of, take the shapes of things that seems like ugly or terrible, I don't know, and put it in another speedness of light or sounds, then, I don't know. Just that, Felipe. Sorry.
No, it's wonderful. Sorry, I was receiving a call because in in the building I live, there's no one at the entrance, and there's also no one who can receive the things that I over. In fact, they are calling me to the other phone, so I have to go check. Wait a little. Marcel?
Yeah. Felipe, I don't know how he realized like sound of things, sound of things like scientific papers, like Instagram.
Yep.
Incredible.
No, the thing is that just before the quarantine, I ordered lots of books for this semester at the university and things. So every day I'm receiving like 2 or 3 things.
Can you show us your
as I told you, this is by George. I will read a poem by George.
Yes, please.
It's not George. It's
in translation in Spanish, please.
Yeah, in Spanish. Let me see. I already checked some of them. Let me see. Oh, I love this. It's kind of the type of poetry I love doing, like taking things from internet using Google. This one is I want to write a book, and it's like the ideas of possible books. Nowadays, I'm more interested in potential books than books, because I have lots of problem reading these days. I have no concentration, so it's easier this way. I will read some of them and then I'll translate it. I want to write a book. I want to write a book that contains English translations for no money, that doesn't have to be combined with English propaganda. I want to write a book that doesn't sell 65,000 copies. I want to write a book that makes grandiose of its state mission, which is make America great again. I want to write a book that ideally covers a game in just over 15 minutes, and so on. I was remembering there's a very funny book by Cory Arcangel, which is writing my novels, something like that. So he picked up tweets from different people that were telling everyone that they were writing.
I know, yeah.
Yeah, it's like in this kind of work. En español, veamos. Quiero escribir un libro. Quiero escribir un libro que contenga traducciones al inglés por nada de plata y que no tenga que ser combinado con propaganda en inglés. Quiero escribir un libro que no venda 65,000 copias. I don't know if this problem with the 65,000 copies is that is it too much for you or too low for your expectations?
Well, I don't know.
It doesn't specify.
No, because it's the artificial intelligence writing this, so I don't know.
Y otro que me gustó mucho, quiero escribir un libro que haga como de manera grandiosa su propia misión, que es hacer a América grande de nuevo, lo que dice Donald Trump. Yeah, in fact, I liked very much just the title. I didn't read it, but you talk about artificial unintelligence, something like that, and I love that because I was thinking something about that idea some weeks ago, but I was thinking about like artificial ¿cómo se dice? Tontera or artificial stupidity, for example, something like that. But it's better unintelligence. I like it very much. Also, congratulations and
what?
Yeah.
And it's like just came from the.
I don't know. I bought it from Amazon and it was really quick.
Yeah.
These things to take 1 or 2 months or 3 months. I don't know. And
I don't have my copies yet, so I don't have them.
You received than before the writer, you know, that's great. Maybe you can receive before to write the book. In a way.
Yes, that would be good.
That would be good. I think we
Next time.
We have to continue that connection with the universe parallel.
Yeah, backwards, yeah. It saves a lot of work.
Yeah, because I think they have the key of our time, you know, like and they want to go slow, and we want to go fast, and then we are parallel. And finally, we find together in the Antarctic. And they resolve a really wonderful problem of the physical quantics, is why neutrino has a little bit of matter and goes faster than light sometimes. And now they resolve because they poured that kind of antimatters and the dark matter in the universe. But the beautiful thing is we have a universe fixed to us, you know, in a way we are like in connection. We are like an 8, you know, like an infinite symbol. Our universe is there and the other universe is there, backwards. We are like going together in that, like man and woman. That is where double, you know, the human being, the mammifers, in a way, we are double. We have 2 eyes, 2 nose, 2 ears, 2 balls.
Hello.
2 sinews. I don't know. You know, we are by pairs. You know, by pairs, but by reflection, by symmetric and anti-symmetric. And I think that is like between like writing and sounding. In a way, that is why maybe that kind of communication of virus in the world is a really, you know, because in France, I don't know in the rest of the world, but the most we have the cluster when you have a lot of virus in places. There is the abattoirs, you know, when they kill the animals in the place. Like that is the most contaminous place in the world. And then I think that it learns us that animals, if so much important, more important than us in a way. I don't know. I feel like fulfilled of cats, but I adore them. They are, you know, me. I just a tool for Axel. We are like in connection, and we live together, and we share the world, and everything that is burned here. It's like coming in the other opposite side, in other universe, and then I don't know. Dream. The dream is really a proof that other universe exists in a way. What did you dream last night, Kinga?
Oh yeah. Okay, I had a dream. I have a beautiful, very old desk here, and I was lying on this desk in a I don't know which kind of uniform somehow, and people ate me literally, so raw. Yeah, I mean you asked. I'm answering. No, it was not painful at all. It was everything was totally right. There was a huge eating, and they ate my raw flesh. I mean, it's really what I dreamt, and that was not like a horrible dream or so. It was everything was in order. Probably it's because it's really like the serving. I'm working so much with the serving that probably that was the meaning of that.
No, and also if we integrate that idea of the anti-universe fixed to us in the opposite side, then all that we dream like painful or triste, you know, sadness in the dream, is because in life we are like happy and you know, like we have that kind of double truth. At least, you know, when you talk about this, that kind of schizophrenic way of mixing sound with or voice with machines, or I don't know, just some speculations. This,
No, it was really like a nice offering act, actually. So I had the feeling of this. I think I read too much about the nuns and what they are practicing and how they are offering or whatever. It's time to go out, I think, from the cluster. So like soon.
But we can give you a residence in Zoom every Wednesday.
Yeah, I mean, I'm coming. I'm definitely coming, and I'm adding also Sylvia because she's really an amazing person and artist, and I'm very happy that I think she will find here a very good place.
Yeah.
I have this feeling.
Right, but it's wonderful to know that you will be ready to go out, not of the closet, but of the cloister. That could be an expression. People, I'm going out of the cloister.
Yeah. Well, yeah, true.
Yeah, it has been wonderful to talk with you, Kinga, and all the friends. I'm very happy with Martin. We've been talking a lot to mix people from really different countries and contexts, and also, as Martin says, we are creating like a little anthology of what's going on in this field this year. So it's great, and I like very much that we do it like every week in the same hour, so we can combine and organize. Well, thank you.
Just a little bit to say you like because Hortense Gauthier, our some poetry friend, she make a radio emission on Wednesday at 11, and she asked me if once time we can change for a Thursday. But anyway, I think maybe. What do you think about what all the people think about it to change for Thursday, or we keep the same day? George, please.
I don't know.
I'm not out of my home either, so it's so different.
Yeah. Anyway, well, I because maybe Hortense will be the next invited. We will wait until that, and then after that is Gerard who present like the other week. And anyway, we meet once a week. But yeah, I think it's good to keep the same time. You know, like
yes, I think so too.
Sorry, because I'm that schizophrenic, double universe to burn. Anyway, friends, avec you, what piece do you present for that video? Because we edit a little bit. Felipe edit a little bit in the weekend to join one.
No, but we were talking that we will upload this conversation as it is. I think there were no obscenities that we have to put a, so we can keep it that way.
Not yet.
Yeah, not yet.
Not sure.
And when she has the link of the work, we can put it just below the in the information of the video. So we
maybe can you present the work now and then?
Yeah, no, she talked.
She talked already.
She talked already a lot about it. So this.
Are you okay, Kinga? Do you need something more?
No. I'm just listening what you are talking about, and I'm agree with everything.
Great.
Okay.
Well, so
I can give you a massage free here from your.
Yeah.
Like give us a massage from fingers.
Yeah. Well, it was great to see you guys, and well, until next week.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Thank you. See you next week.
Thank you.
Ciao.
Bye.
Thank you.